Hello again everybody, so today I'm back and today I'm going to be doing one of my regular monthly features, and that's my wrap up for the month of March and my to be read for the month of April. Read a ton of books in March actually, really pleased with myself, and I've got quite a lot of stuff I'm planning to read for April, like a lot of stuff, a lot of really long and interesting books. So I'm really excited to show you guys what I'm going to read. Without further ado, let's get down to my wrap up for March. So the first thing I read in the month of March is actually quite a random thing that's not something like I would ever normally read. I spoke about it in my book haul a couple of days ago, and that's The 24-Hour Wine Expert. So I enjoy a drink of wine, I think that's safe to say, and it's something I've never really known that much about, so I wanted something just simple and easy, and something I could kind of refer back to in the future about wine, different types of wine, what the things on labels, etc. mean. So a few people picked this up at work, and I've really, really enjoyed it. I think it's perfectly does what I wanted to do. It covers all the kind of superficial bits, and really good on how to choose what to buy from a supermarket, what to choose to buy when you're at a restaurant, all the stuff you would really need to know about it. Cost a £5, really, really cost effective, really enjoyed it, and I think it's something quite interesting. If anyone's just wanting a basic outline of wines and what to buy, this is the one for you. I gave this an 8 out of 10, even though that's slightly different to a normal score because I don't think I'm rating it. It's more on usefulness than how much I enjoyed it in this case with this kind of book, but definitely an 8 out of 10 for usefulness for me. So the next two non-fictions are actually kind of linked, they're both on the same theme, and they're both kind of medical non-fiction, which I've talked a lot about on this channel. The first one is Reaching Down the Rabbit Hole by Alan Roper. So this is an American neurologist, and similar to Being Mortal and Do No Harm, it's him looking back over his hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of cases that he's looked at over his time, and kind of drawing little examples and cool little anecdotes and messages from them. So there's things in here about, you know, terminal illness and how to deal with that, about the prospect of choosing different types of treatment, about losing loved ones, about facing death yourself, about losing some of your mental capacities. It just covers a lot of really interesting mental illness stuff. Really well written, it's really good. You can tell the author's got somebody else in to help him that is a bit more of a writer, because it's just really beautifully done. And this covers a lot less kind of surgery and medicine than the previous ones, and it's much more about the kind of relationship between a doctor and a patient, and it's really, really fascinating. Tons of really nice little anecdotes, and overall I think it was just really well written and I really enjoyed it. Again, similar to the others, I'd love to see more and more examples of little anecdotes like this, and I think it's one well worth the read if you enjoyed those. 8.5 out of 10. Similarly, the other one is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. So I've just uploaded a 60-second review for this, and basically this is about an American neurologist, Paul Kalanithi, who basically just in the last year of his residency in America discovers he's got terminal illness, and the first half is all about his medical residency and learning medicine and about his life, and the second part is about dealing with this challenge that the terminal illness throws at him. It's beautifully written. He did English before and you can tell that, and the last bit, which is narrated by his wife, is just really, really amazingly well written. It's really moving, really inspires you for both a zest for life and for medicine itself, and it really emotional, made me cry, made me laugh. An absolutely wonderful book that everyone should read. I gave that a 9 out of 10. Moving on to another couple of genres now. Firstly, we've got sci-fi. I read Dune Messiah, the sequel to Dune, which is the best-selling sci-fi book ever, I believe. This basically feels a lot like an epilogue. It's only short in comparison to Dune, which is huge, and it does, I don't know, it takes a while to get going. It doesn't feel like much happens. It definitely feels like it could be a few chapters rather than a full book. Some interesting character development, some interesting philosophical conversations in there, but all in all, I wasn't overly enamoured with it. I think it's quite well done, and it does definitely feel very, very similar to Dune, and it's worth a read if you enjoyed Dune, but it's nothing to go out your way for otherwise. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. Next up is a thriller. This is a crime thriller by Peter May called The Firemaker. So I've talked about this before. It's set in China, so I really think Asian culture is fascinating, and I've been after something along these lines for a while. This appeared just by magic. It's about a pair of characters. There's a male Chinese detective and an American female pathologist who end up getting teamed up and thrown together, and it's quite different to a lot of like police procedurals because it's got more thriller elements, and they're kind of operating outside the law for parts of it, and their relationship is really good. There's a few things in there which should be really emotional and devastating and don't really hit you, and I never got massively gripped by it, but I think it's an interesting start to a new series that I'm looking forward to reading, and I think the characters and their relationships are quite well done. So if you enjoy a thriller, you want something quite easy, give it a read. It's a cool setting. I gave it a 7 out of 10. After that then we're looking at some YA titles. So the first one is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. So I read this after reading The Art Being Normal, and she came to the Waterstones branch in Leeds, where I used to work, which I went to for an event she did. And basically this is very similar to The Art Being Normal. It's about a pair of twins, and it's narrated firstly when they're 13, 14, and then when they're slightly older. And there's lots of things going on, like one of the characters is gay and he's coming to terms with that. They're both really talented with art, and they're both trying to work out how that fits into their life plans, about the relationships between them, what's going on with their family. It's really complicated, and I don't really like contemporary YA, but I really loved this. I thought it was really well done. Some of the things seemed a little bit too literary for me, but actually in YA it was quite refreshing, and there's some really cool little bits, like Noah, the guy in it, he's really into art and painting, so every now and then it'll have a little interjection where it's like self-portrait, and then the title of the piece he would describe about his emotions or what's just happened, and that's a really clever, cool, unique feature, and it's little things like that that make it really stand out. I really enjoyed this. If you like contemporary YA, or you want something that deals with some of those kind of social issues, like gay characters, like familial relationships, give it a read. I gave it 8 out of 10. The next one then is a trilogy, and I read all of these this month in celebration of the last one being released. That's the Sally Green series, Half Bad, Half Wild and Half Lost. They're in the wrong order. Let's not talk about that. But basically this is a series which is pretty much like an adult Harry Potter, almost. It's Harry Potter with swearing and violence, and it's just really interesting. Again, it covers a lot of issues, kind of social issues. It's about black and white witches, and how they fit with each other and their relationships, and also about how that fits in with modern society. So there's bits from that come together with things about racism, things about exclusion, things about parenthood and relationships and identity, and things about, again, homosexual stuff, and it's just really interesting. Covers a lot of amazing issues, and some of the things like homosexuality are kind of just in there. They aren't an issue. It's not about the character being gay or how he deals with that. It's just something that happens, something that's part of the book, and I love that. Creates a really amazing world. I got so caught up in the characters. They felt like my group of friends, and if you're after a really good YA trilogy to read, you can't go wrong with this at all. I gave, overall, as a trilogy, I gave them 8.5 out of 10. So that's my wrap up for March. Like I said, a ton of books I read there, and now I'm going to show you the books I'm going to be reading in the month of April. So first up, Garth Greenwell, What Belongs to You. So this is a new book that I really didn't know much about, but it's got tons of like reviews in newspapers and on blogs in the past month or so. It's about an American guy who goes to live in an Eastern European country and gets involved with a gay prostitute, and it's just about their relationship, and it kind of spirals to show some things off about the narrator's previous life. I think it covers things about child abuse and familial relationships, and it's a really interesting book. It's by the same publishers that did A Little Life, and it's being compared to that but shorter, which is great for me. Completely off the wall, not the kind of thing I'd normally read, but for some reason I was just quite interested to give it a go, and I'm looking forward to reading that. This one is really quite random, and you won't see this one coming. It's a Classic FM book about video game music. So I've always had a massive fascination with video game soundtracks and classical music in that regard, and I've been wanting to find a book that talks about it and gives me a bit of a list of things to listen to and things to look out for. And this is exactly that. It's only a tenner, a lovely little hardback by Classic FM, a British radio station, and it covers all the bits of the theory behind video game soundtracks, examples of some of the amazing stuff, the waves it's made in general mainstream media, and it's just a really interesting tidbit book that I'll quite enjoy having a flick through, and I'm looking forward to listening to some of the soundtracks. This is a big one. SBQR by Mary B, and it's a big one for two reasons. One, it's actually massive. And two, because this is my ideal kind of book. My degree specialised a lot in ancient history, and I've not touched it for a while. I had a bit of a detox, let myself off and do some other stuff for a while, but this is getting me straight back into it. So far I've started reading this and it seems really enjoyable, it's really well written. Mary Beard has an amazing personality, and I'm so excited to give this a full read. I've not read anything like this in a while, and I think this could be an amazing piece of ancient history writing. Next up is Concentrate, which is a YA hardback new fiction. Been nominated for a couple of awards recently, and I actually picked it up in a second-hand bookshop in London just on the off chance it was £3. Thought give it a go, looks like my kind of thing, and then it's got all this massive reviews and really great feedback. So I literally know nothing about it, but I'm really excited to give that a read. It's going to be one of the first ones I read this month. And I'm really enjoying YA, and particularly YA that's a little bit different, and this seems like that's going to follow that perfectly. This next one is a beautiful little book. Lost Japan by Alex Kerr. So I talked about this in my book haul. It's a really interesting travel book about rural Japan and how that's changed over the past century or so. The kind of things you've seen rising, the kind of things you've seen disappearing, and just about the heart of Japan and how that works with, you know, the ancient culture of it all. I love Asian stuff, as I mentioned with the previous book. I think it's a really interesting culture, and I'm really excited to get a glimpse of that, particularly rural Japan, which I think you see less of. I think the big neon lights of Tokyo really dominate Japanese, or representations of Japanese culture. I'm looking forward to seeing the more rural side. While we're on interesting non-fiction, Reality is Brokered by Professor McGonagall. Don't get me started. So excited about Professor McGonagall. But this is a really interesting kind of smart thinking look at video games and their role in society and what they can mean for you as a person if you play them, and the kind of the impact they can have on your life. Covers a whole different things, covers loads of different specific games and genres, and I've read a few things like this in the past. I absolutely love video game literature. I think it's a really interesting area that's really unexplored. There's not much kind of critical writing or interesting psychological writing about it, but it's a whole wealth of information that could be covered, and I'm really excited for this. This is the longest and most extensive book on video game literature I've read in a long time, and I'm really, really excited to give that a go. Now for my kind of blast for the past for the month, we've got The Coincidence in the Dog in the Night Time by Mark Haddon. So this is a book I read years ago. So iconic, really, really made kind of books about mental illness and mental disorders really, really popular, and this really launched it because it is amazing. Full of tons of little really interesting tidbits, like all the chapters are prime numbers as opposed to going up numerically. It's just really clever, and I'm really excited to give that a reread. Lastly is The Novice by Taran Matharu. It's a really interesting YA fantasy book, just like the kind of Sabriel and Jonathan Stroud books I read when I was younger, which I loved. This looks like it could be a really interesting new series. It's the first one, and it's just a bit interesting. It seems like it'd be quite an easy read, but I like that kind of magical summoning things and all those kind of elements, which I think are what will make this really interesting and stand out for me. So I'm really excited to give that a read, and hopefully that's the start of a really good new trilogy. The last thing I'm going to read this month, which I actually haven't got with me, is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. So I'm actually doing a buddy read from Goodreads with Mary Ellen, who's been commenting on a few of my videos, and I'm going to give some periodic updates to that by video over the next month or so. It's a really interesting book which covers so many different topics like depression and illness and just a whole host of things, and it's the kind of thing that I think I'm going to really enjoy, and I'm excited to give that a read as well. So there we have it. That's my wrap up and TBR for the month of March and April. Really excited by all the things I've read, and I'm really excited to read some more in the next month or so. Please leave a like and subscribe down below if you've enjoyed. I'm really intrigued to see what you guys think about the books I've read and the books I've picked. There's tons of stuff to talk about today, and I'm really hoping that you guys have got some really interesting feedback to give on that. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Comments, likes, subscribes, all that stuff's amazing, and I'm always after suggestions from you guys for what I can read. I'm getting through my bookshelves so quickly, always need some more tips. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with my next video.